as I've said many times on many platforms, I am a huge Daredevil fan. You know, not just the Netflix adaptation or the recent Disney Plus adaptation. I've been a Daredevil fan for years, decades now. Been a huge fan of the comics and, you know, many of the notable storylines. Obviously, Frank Miller stuff back in the day in the 70s and 80s. I mean, he pretty much reinvented the character, made, you know, the Kingpin, who originally was just a Spider-Man villain, made him the mortal enemy of Daredevil. But of course, you know, outside of Frank Miller, there's been other fantastic storylines and writers on the character for years, including Brian Michael Bendis, who's probably my favorite writer on Daredevil. Ed Brubaker obviously did a fantastic run. You know, you've had Mark Waid, of course, who did kind of a different take on the character. And then you've had other ones, but like more recently, like Chip Zdarsky and, you know, not Andy Diggle. We don't talk about Andy Diggle. Or Charles Soule is another recent writer. But yeah, Daredevil is just, for the last 25 years, has just been one of Marvel Comics' just, you know, best books out there. And I was able to be exposed to a lot of that stuff even before we got certain adaptations. Like, you know, obviously, yeah, we had the Ben Affleck movie, which, funny enough, we did a watch party for not too long ago. And, yeah, not a great film. Did watch the director's cut, which does add a few good things to it. There's no question about that. But overall, not a very good adaptation. Not Ben Affleck's fault. A lot of people, you know, heap the blame on him. It's like, no. I would definitely blame the director, definitely blame the writers for the film, the studio, obviously. But not him. He was fine. And so the material wasn't great. However, I feel like Daredevil finally received a great adaptation with the Netflix series, those original first 3 seasons. Season 1 I thought was fantastic. Loved Charlie Cox's performance in that. Loved Vincent D'Onofrio's performance in that as Kingpin. And the rest of the supporting cast, too, I think did a great job. Season 2, I enjoy. I think the first half of Season 2 is much better than the second half. The first half, which focused on, you know, John Bernthal's Punisher. Loved his take on the character. I think that's where the Punisher has been the strongest, personally, in my opinion. So far in the Marvel stuff. And then, the second half, doing the lecture in the hand. I've never been a big hand fan. Anytime you bring in the mysticism and the fantasy stuff to Daredevil, it gets a little fucking wonky, in my opinion. But season 3, I thought was fantastic. That probably still is my favorite season of Daredevil. And of course, you know, Marvel television eventually, you know, shifted back to Disney proper. All those Netflix shows got canceled. Daredevil, which in my opinion was the cream of the crop. That was the best one. That's the one that lasted, you know, 3 seasons. I mean, not to say that Jessica Jones didn't have a good season. Season 1 was great, you know. But then, you know, Luke Cage, I wasn't the biggest fan of outside the first 4 episodes of that. Never really liked what they did with Iron Fist. Defenders was a wah-wah, like, right? But Daredevil was the most consistent one. And I think there was just a lot of concern, you know, with Disney TV acquiring it and then saying, like, they're going to do their own adaptation, their own interpretation, right? And, of course, Disney, Marvel TV shows have been a mixed bag, you know, to say the least. You know, not to say they haven't been all bad. Like, I think WandaVision was great. I really liked the first 2 seasons of Loki. Love that, you know. But then there's been some other stuff that just hasn't reached the same level as those shows, obviously. There's been some big disappointments. And then, you know, hearing that they were not going to do a continuation of the original Netflix Daredevil, and people were concerned about that, and apparently what they had and what they saw, you know, the powers that be, Kevin Feige and company, they said, you know what, we got to restart this over or just rethink this. And they restarted production, did a whole new pilot, essentially, first episode, changed a lot of things along the way, and made it a proper follow-up to the Netflix series. Daredevil Born Again is Daredevil Season 4. That's what it is. This is not a reinterpretation, right? This is not a spiritual successor. No, this is the next season of Daredevil, and I'm glad that they made that decision because so much of this show brings in all that stuff from the previous seasons, the relationships, the defining moments in a lot of these characters' lives, from Matt Murdock to Wilson Fisk and many of the other supporting characters, and you feel that weight on so many of the major players in that show, along with also incorporating some of the recent Disney Plus Marvel stuff as well. And for the most part, it doesn't feel so oppressive. It doesn't feel like they're constantly referencing it for the most part. But as I said in my original review, which pretty much just covered, I think, the first 2 episodes. I think they just released the first 2 episodes. The start of this season and throughout the rest of it, like up into the finale, I think it's been great. It like how this show starts out in the first episode, it delivers just a shocking moment, a major tragedy, and featuring an excellent action sequence in particular between Daredevil, one of his most dangerous enemies in the show, and then after that moment, which is about the first 20 or so minutes of the episode, it takes place like a year later, dealing with the fallout. Matt Murdock having given up, the Daredevil mantles, like saying like, no, I want to give the judicial system a chance. I can't just be a vigilante the entire time. I gotta trust in the system, right? What if the system flounders? What if it fails? What if someone comes in there to exploit the system, to find the cracks in it and pulverize it and then build it up anew with a new foundation in their own image. And that takes the form of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, who runs for mayor, is elected, despite all these fucking morons knowing he's a criminal or has a criminal past. He's like, I'm reformed. I want to save my city, doing all that shit. And being in place and taking over like the political structure in New York City, and Matt Murdock having to deal with that, being fearful of that, and wanting to stop Fisk and his various other allies from corrupting the system more and more, even though it's happening more and more throughout the show. And I think for the most part, the series succeeds. Like when it is focused on Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, as Daredevil, as Vincent D'Onofrio, as Kingpin, this series is firing all cylinders. Like these 2 guys are just so perfect as their respective characters. Like, I know everyone says like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is iconic. Chris Evans as Captain America. It's like perfect casting. Like I think Charlie Cox is in that conversation as just like he just nails. He just has a fundamental understanding of this character, what defines him. Sees how flawed he is, which Matt Murdock has always been such a flawed character in the comics, which makes him so interesting. And it's just great to see like Charlie Cox, because there's some actors, who play like, a beloved, iconic character, whether it be from a book or a comic or what have you, a film franchise, and they seemingly become so resentful, of it, and they poo-poo it later on, in their careers, even though it made them who they are. And that always rubs me the wrong way. Charlie Cox he seems to always be excited to play this character. He's so passionate about it. Like he references the runs and moments and certain scenes that he wants to incorporate in the show that he really, it's like he even says like every time before we start a new season, I always reread my favorite Daredevil runs. He always talks about, I reread the Bendis stuff, I reread the Brubaker stuff. He's read more recent runs like Mark Waid and Chip Zdarsky and Charles Soule, right, which they adapt a lot of the more recent stuff, and the Kingpin right from and I'm just like, God, it's like, man, you really do love this. And it comes across in his performance. You see all of Matt's flaws. You see that seething rage that he has, that he always tries to keep at bay in his, belief in the system or his belief in the community or everything like that, or his relationships and as flawed and fucked up his relationships are. It's all on the screen, and he just does such a great job, both in the suit and outside the suit. Like him, like an essential part. Because some people have complained, like, I don't like the fact that, we're seeing a lot of courtroom drama. I like that we see a lot of the courtroom drama in the show. I like lawyer Matt Murdock. I like defense attorney Matt Murdock. And to see that in the show itself and have it executed as well as it is, I think that's great. Like they adapt, a certain storyline from the Bendis era, the White Tiger storyline, which is a vigilante who is blamed for the murder of a cop, because that's one of the big stories in this season is these corrupt police officers who have kind of taken on the ways of the Punisher and are doing their things their way, and there's the establishment of this vigilante task force to take down vigilantes and just really to execute the will of the Kingpin. Matt Murdock has to defend like one of these vigilantes, and in his own way, it's like I'm defending myself in what I did as Daredevil, and like how that storyline is handled in the show, I think is great. And the many other storylines that they adapt, I think, are really good. Whether it deals with a newer villain like Muse, who is this serial killer, this psychopath who takes his victims, kills them, drains them of their blood, and then uses their blood to paint all these murals across the city. And you see, like, Matt Murdock's approach to trying to find this guy, but also at the same time, Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk. And that's the whole other part of the show. It's like, yeah, all the great Daredevil stuff that's going on. But what they do, Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, is great, where he comes in, and at first he's just like, hey man, listen, I know I did some bad things back in my, but I'm a new person, I'm a new man. I love this city. This city raised me when I was a boy, like doing that whole thing. He's like, I want to make it better. But you just know he's going to take the political apparatus, the structure, the foundation, and bend it to his will as much as possible until it breaks, and then he can reform it in his own image. And it's great, like, seeing him at first bounce up against the political bureaucracy that's in place, and then finding ways to worm his way through it, to corrupt it to his own image. Like, all that's great. And you see that with a lot of his political allies in the show. I think are great. And then at the same time, you have Elite Zurer, who I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name, but this is the original actress that played Vanessa Fisk in the original series. And she apparently wasn't originally going to come back for the show. They hadn't cast her, but they said, you know what, let's bring her back. And thank God they did, because they give her so much to do in this series. Like, they set up that her and Wilson have not been together for quite some time. She has taken over the Kingpin's criminal empire, essentially controlling many of the other criminal organizations, like and gangs and things, and have kind of bended them to her will. And then Wilson Fisk comes back and then wants these, has these political aspirations. And it's kind of like, at first they're kind of like butting heads. Like, how's this going to work? And they have a whole wonderful subplot where it's like they're going to marriage counseling. They're going to see a psychiatrist who also happens to be dating Matt Murdock. And so Matt Murdock's paranoid. He's like, what, did you pick that? Did you, blaming Wilson Fisk, did you pick her so you can keep tabs on me? You're going to use her as a thing to hold over my head? Dealing with his paranoia. But like, I love all the marital stuff between Wilson and Vanessa. And, as the series goes along, it gets more and more fucked up. At first, it starts out, it's like, oh, this is kind of sweet. It's kind of sad, but it's like, these are just two broken and maybe just downright evil people. Like, the foul things that Wilson Fisk and Vanessa Fisk do throughout this show, it's like, yeah, you two just fucking deserve each other, don't you? Like, they really do. And I love the stuff that they do with her. And there's some really nice twists and turns of her character, and some nice reveals as well. But Vincent D'Onofrio is so great. As we were saying, before I got into the review, the meat and potatoes of the review itself, like, Vincent D'Onofrio's taken the Kingpin. It's just not what you would expect. There's like this awkwardness to him. Like, he says these beautiful things, these charismatic things in like such a weird, awkward way where it's like, this shouldn't work, but it kind of does. Like, his cadence is so odd. It's like, is he on the spectrum or anything? Like, you don't really know, but it works for his character. And he always, much like Matt Murdock, he just has this seething fucking rage. Although Matt is seemingly more able to kind of hide it, he struggles every time. You just watch him fidget, his hands are moving. You just know he just wants to slam someone's face into the concrete. He wants to rip someone's head off. And it's great seeing it in the show. He does some despicable fucking things in this show, some violent things. I mean, I think it's just become Kingpin's trademark across all media, just to like start fighting like a gorilla, like having his fist going, just slamming it on some poor son of a bitch, just smashing them into goop, trying to break every bone in their body, and just kind of like having these, essentially a temper tantrum. And it all works in the show. And sets up some really cool, tense moments before just violence and blood and viscera and gore. It's really, really good stuff. But even at the same time, when even it's not getting gory and bloody, which the show certainly does, I'll touch on the action just a bit. Like, he just has these moments where he's like, okay, I'm kind of like bouncing off the political apparatus, but I'm going to start to worm my kingpin ways into this. And like how he's able to intimidate a guy, able to blackmail someone, all those scenes are handled very, very well. And he's not like even physically threatening him. He's just saying like, I have this. It would be a shame if this information got out there. It would hurt you. It would hurt me. It hurt the city. We don't want to hurt the city. Dude. Like, he does stuff like that, and it's great. So good. In terms of like the other returning characters, we do have Wilson Bethel, who returns as Benjamin or Dex Poindexter, Bullseye essentially. And he pops up in the first episode, and he's fantastic. He's in full Bullseye regalia, and he's great. And, of course, coming off of Season 3, which was amazing what they did with Bullseye in the show. He's present in the first episode, and he comes back in the back half. And he's just so goddamn good because you just want more of him. And he's just not in the show enough. I just love their presentation of Bullseye in this. He's not like Colin Farrell. He's not over the top and ridiculous and Irish. Irish 211 like Colin Farrell is in that movie. It's like, this is a character who is incredibly mentally ill and has just been taken advantage of by these horrible, manipulative people, and literally just pointing the direction of Bullseye, essentially, to kill whoever needs to be killed, whoever's perceived as a threat. And Wilson Bethel, I don't think gets enough credit for his performance, but he does a really good job in the show. I wish he was just in it more, to be perfectly honest. Speaking of the person, I wish he was in it more. John Bernthal returns as Frank Castle, Punisher. He pops up, I think, in episode 4 for a good bit. Has a great interaction with Matt Murdock. Like, their relationship, friendship, points of contention are on full display throughout this entire series. And you're like, John Berthel's doing his thing, is like, you just gotta fucking kill him, Red. Always rubbing the back of his head. He has some great stuff. They have several great action scenes together in the show. But, Bernthal, if you were concerned that, Disney's gonna Disneyfy Punisher, they don't. And actually, it's cool because a big plot line of this show is you have these police officers, much like in real life, who have a love for the Punisher and how he does things. And like Frank is confronted, with this police force that breaks the rules and hurts innocent people and doesn't follow the law, doesn't follow due process. And he's finally like confronted with this, and he has his own reactions to it, which I think were really good. And I think we're going to see more of that in season 2. But I really like, despite not being in the show too much, I like what they ended up doing with John Bernthal's lot. And then you see some other characters return, like Deborah Ann Walls, Karen Page. She's essentially in the first episode and then comes back in the finale. She, again, very confident as his character. Relationships with both Matt and Frank on full display. And I think she does a great job as well. And there's like a ton of other supporting characters in the series too. Michael Gandolfini, which is so funny. He ends up working for the Kingpin. Part of his campaign is essentially like one of his most trusted aides in his administration. What's so funny about him being in the show is like his father, James Gandolfini, who of course famously played Tony Soprano in The Sopranos, one of the the most influential dramas for television ever. James Gandolfini like originally tried out for the role of Kingpin in the 2003 Daredevil, but it lost it to Michael Clark Duncan. And so it's just crazy to see then his son essentially like working for the Kingpin. He plays a great, just wormy fucking guy who just wants to appease his boss as much as possible. And he does a really good job throughout the show. And you just see his evolution to just being the scummiest, political bootlicker imaginable. The action throughout the show, I think, is great. You know, they have a little bit more budget than they did in the original series, so Daredevil is a lot more athletic than he originally was, and kind of what they do with him, especially with his Billy Club, which is never really used as much as I would have liked in the original series. They use it a lot here to great effect, really fun stuff. A lot of the fight sequences are great, fantastic action choreography for Daredevil, for Kingpin, for Punisher. All that looks really good. If I have any like major complaints about the show, and it's funny because a lot of people say like the best episode of this series is episode 5, which is kind of like this standalone episode. It does play a bit of a role in the grand scheme of things when you think about it, but it's the bank heist episode, the bank robbery episode, where it's this bank robbery that happens on St. Patrick's Day, which everything sounds great about for this episode, like on paper. It's like, oh, we're gonna have it where Matt Murdock goes to the bank and as he's doing his thing, whether we're working for a client or something or what have you, just a regular day in Matt Murdock's life. Fucking bank robbers come in and hold everyone hostage, right? And he's one of the hostages. He's like, oh shit, and he's got to like figure out this situation. Not having any, like, being in costume, not having any of, like, his weapons or anything. He's just got to use his fucking willpower, his intelligence to get out of the situation, save everybody at the same time. It's great on paper. But for whatever reason, I know the reason. So much of this episode just felt like, and I'm going to spoil something here for this episode, okay? So if you don't want to know, come back in a bit. But this episode was the most overt, like, we're trying to connect this to the MCU, where Matt Murdock pretty much teams up with Kamala Khan's dad from Miss Marvel. He works at the bank. He's one of the bank managers there. And I don't know, like, their interactions just, despite me actually liking that character, like, Miss Marvel, I loved all the family stuff in that show. It was all the superhero shit that just didn't work about that series, which is so funny. And I loved his character, actually. He was really fun. But like here, it just didn't work. And a lot of the comedy between them like didn't work. And I thought, it's like, I have a daughter. Her name is Kamala Khan. Like he says that like several times. Kamala Khan. We can just say your daughter Kamala. And it's like, she's a superhero too, her name, here's a Funko Pop of her. It's like, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck's going on? And Matt's like, I should meet this Kamala Khan, this Miss Marvel. I should come to dinner sometime. He's like, we would love to have you for dinner, Matt. And I don't know, just the robbers, like, and maybe I'm being a little too picky, like, call me off and being a little too picky, but they're all fucking Irish, and it happens to be St. Patrick's Day. It's just like, I don't know. It just, I'm like, okay. and they're very harsh Atar Irish too, talking about the old country and potatoes. I was like, what are we doing? It just felt like this episode just didn't need to be, like, you could remove it and still have the regular show, like everything. You could be, instead of 9 episodes, it'd be 8, and you wouldn't even feel it. It was just so odd, but so many people love this episode. Like, some people are like, yeah, I like that. It was ice, and I understand. It just, the basic premise of it sounds fucking great. It sounds like an iconic, like, one-off Daredevil, one-issue storyline. Like, oh, that's so fun. Like, if they would ever adapt that. But it just didn't connect with me at all. It just really did. It felt like the most Disney Plus episode of Daredevil. Where it's we're a little wacky. And I didn't care. I just didn't really care for it. It's really the only major criticism that I have. There might be, like, occasionally, like, a wonky moment of CGI in the series, but not enough to where it was a consistent problem for me. Because most of the time, like, the action, the choreography is really good. They get very bloody and gory, and my God, in this last episode, they get fucking graphic. It's like, if you like body horror like I do, you see some body horror in this. It's goopy. It gets very goopy. And I like that quite a bit. But a lot of the character arcs I think are great. I love what they did with Matt and what he's going through. Carrying that trauma, as he often does, carrying that trauma, that Catholic guilt, all that's on full display. Vincent D'Onofrio's return as Kingpin is great. Love his relationship with his wife, Vanessa. So great that they brought back Elite Zurer. Hope I'm saying her name correctly. The relationship is wonderful. And a lot of supporting cast they do a great job with, too. From John Bernthal as Frank. He's like, now I want to see what's his special going to be like, I think that'd be really fun. What's going to happen with Bullseye now that they have him returning and the ever-growing enemy list that he has. It's going to be interesting because the one thing I can maybe see pissing some people off is like, it does end on a cliffhanger. It's essentially like, all right, well, we got to find out what happens in season 2 because not everything is resolved. Most things are not resolved this season. Our heroes' backs are against the wall. Some of them are just like, some of them are face first into a wall right now. And Daredevil essentially is just like, all right, I gotta put a crew together and to save the day. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward to seeing possibly other hero appearances in the future. Like, if you're going in this thinking you're gonna be seeing Spider-Man or Luke Cage or Jessica Jones or Iron Fist, they don't show up in this. They don't show up in this. Maybe there's some references, but they don't show up in this. Potentially, I think maybe for something for season 2, and maybe in a way they could redeem some of those characters who I felt like the writing just wasn't the best for them. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this season. It's up in terms of the Marvel Disney Plus shows. I guess the specials as well. So let's count the specials. It's right up there with WandaVision, Loki season 1, season 2, and like Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. I thought it was very good and a worthy successor to the Netflix Daredevil series, which again, this is very much Daredevil season 4. But what about you guys? I'm very curious. What did you think of Daredevil Born Again, Daredevil season 4? Did you like it as much as I did? Did you have issues with episode 5 or the bank robbing episode? I didn't think it was all that great. People have loved it. I don't know. What do you think of Charlie Cox? What do you think of D'Onofrio? What do you want to see in season 2? Let me know.
5 minutes later.
Okay, I'm gonna do a spoiler thing right here. Okay, because it's something that I'm like, now would be a fucking good time to bring in this character. And I think the powers that be and how this character is shared among 2 different studios is annoying. Okay, so I'm gonna say it right now. Spoilers now. They mentioned Spider-Man in the show. Like Wilson, funny enough, Kingpin is the one that mentors them when he basically is laying down the law and saying like, we will not tolerate vigilantes in our city anymore. People dressed up as devils or what's the other thing he said? Oh, well, the big one that he mentions is, men wearing spider costumes. And it's like, he mentions Spider-Man, essentially. And I'm like, fucking Christ, can we just get Tom Holland's Spider-Man either cross over into Daredevil season 2 or just have Spider-Man Brand New Day be the street-level Spider-Man film, all right? Can we just do that? Because everyone's mentioning him. He's around when, like, in the finale. This is a spoiler finale, okay? Spoiler. Kingpin's like, all right, fuck it, martial law. I am going to kill anyone who crosses me. I have an enemy list. I'm going to be murdering everybody. I'm going to be hunting down the We're going to kill Matt Murdock. Fuck Matt Murdock. We're going to kill Matt Murdock. We're going after the Punisher. We're going after this guy and her. Everybody's on my goddamn list. I want total control, okay? My criminal empire and the political structure of this city are going to be intertwined. I'm creating a fucking legacy for myself, Vanessa, and my family forever, all right? That's what he wants. And Spider-Man's not, and he shuts down all the electricity in the city. Manhattan Island is just all goes offline, and rampant chaos in the city streets and shit. People are stealing stuff. Cops are shooting all of them, pretending that they're vigilantes. People are protesting like, fuck you, boom, shooting you in the face. Like, they're doing all that. And I'm like, and I know this is like always been a complaint of like, where are the fucking other characters? Where's the other heroes? But Spider-Man, he's got to be in this, all right? He's got to be involved in some capacity. All right, you fucking mention them, like people in spider costumes. It's like, come on. The powers that be, Disney, Sony, just fucking get over this whole thing. Well, he can be in the movies, but he can't be in the TV show. Fuck all that. Like, I'm sure Tom Holland would love to do a couple episodes of Daredevil. I think that'd be really fucking fun. Have him go up against, Wilson Fisk, Kingpin finally. I think that would be great. It would just make sense. Just fucking do it. Or just have the movie. Or just bring fucking Daredevil into that movie. I don't know. It needs to happen. Okay? Because you can make all these fun little references, Kingpin bring up Spider-Man and stuff, but it's like, guys, Kingpin is also a Spider-Man villain. Let's see that happen. And you got a great Kingpin with you, all right, right now? So just fucking do it. Just do it, all right? Because Daredevil is essentially, he's going to, and hopefully they do this well, because one of the big disappointments of the Netflix shows, I think perhaps the biggest disappointment, was the Defenders. It was all leading to that, and it just didn't fucking work, because the story fucking sucked. And the writing just wasn't all that great. Now you have an opportunity to do that again, and you assume they're going to bring in, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, fucking Iron Fist probably. They also introduced some other characters, like Tony Dalton's in the show. He has some great scenes with Wilson Fisk, the swordsman. He's doing swordsman stuff, the Punisher. Bring in Spider-Man. Just fucking do it, all right? Just come on. It would just make so much sense, so. We'll see. That's what season 2 essentially sets up, is the Defenders are going to defend New York City. And I think it would be cool to have Spider-Man be part of that. If not, it'd be a wasted opportunity. Because it's like, where the fuck was he? Was he studying? Was he studying for his GED to get into college? Come on. So, that's what I'll say. Spoilers are now over. If that is the thing, okay, maybe one more spoiler. If they don't want him involved because it's a darker story, like that would just suck. I'd be like, well, it's too violent. It's like, come on, I see what you're saying. Like that might be a possibility, and it'd be a shame if that's the truth. It's just fucking Sony. It's the Sony of it all. It's like, god damn it. Oh, I know. Yeah, Vincent D'Onofrio said like Kingpin can only be used for TV, but not for movies now. It's just so weird. I'm sure that's what he was told. I'm sure. Like, I don't think he's lying. But it just fucking sucks. It's like, just fucking, come on. Just like, what's it gonna hurt? It's all money. It's like, But yeah, they're definitely bringing in the Defenders of season 2. Luke, Jessica, and even Danny still don't know Matt's alive. Well, I think at this point they know Daredevil's back. They probably know that. Yeah, so no, we're going to make our own Kingpin. We'll make a movie that completely destroys his character. So there, probably true. Daredevil season 2 definitely has to come out before Doomsday Ride. Good luck explaining Doomsday otherwise. I think Daredevil season 2 is coming out next year. I think it's coming out the same year as Doomsday, right? Because they already finished principal photography. So, and they said they're essentially filming these 2 seasons back to back. So I think that is happening. That's next year as well, which is great. And I think I heard the viewership on this is not that high, which is disappointing because I would love it because I think it's really good. Aside from episode 5, which I didn't care for. Some people liked it, more power to you. But yeah, it's just a shame. But in any case, I really like this show. I thought it was great. I'm hoping for the best for season 2, and I would love it if Spider-Man's there. I just think it would be a tremendous missed opportunity if you don't include good old Webhead. All right, I want good old Webhead to team up with old Hornhead, chat. Because I liked it when fucking Matt Murdock showed up as Peter's defense attorney in what the fuck was it called? The third Spider-Man movie. I thought that was really fun. No Way Home. I thought that was nice. So let's do it again.